In programming, there are three basic concepts that you need to understand: encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. So I'm going to use non-programming terms and programming terms to explain what these mean. So say you have an array of cell phones. So you make a class and you call it iPhone, and it can call, text, and connect to the internet. Now you have a different class, say a class over here. I'm going to make another circle. Should have it in my clipboard. Yep. A circle here, and you have a main class. Oops. You have a main, and it has an iPhone in it. So I'm going to use a red line to show that there is an iPhone in this class. Alright, so you have a method in your iPhone that handles calling people. And this main method does iPhone.call. Now the main, so iPhone.call has a bunch of code in it, right? But the main class doesn't need to know that code. It just needs to know that this class can handle the call method. This class is not executing the code, this class is. That's encapsulation. Let's circle that. Just kidding. That's encapsulation. Alright, so as you remember from our rule of arrays, you can't have an array with different data types. So say you want to add an Android to your main class. So Android, and this one can also call text and internet. All right, but you still can't have them both in one array. So so let's say you go into make another class, and you make a class, you call it phone. Call it call, text, and connect to the internet. So now all these things have pretty much the same features. Of course, iPhone and Android are somewhat different. So now in programming, the term inheritance, oops, I did the wrong thing. Do that again. Call, text, internet. Alright, so in programming, there's a thing you can do called inheritance. So let's say iPhone and Android inherit from phone. So that means I can get rid of these from the class, or fill that with white. So now there's less code in my Android, iPhone, and my Android and iPhone class, but I can still use it. I can still use call, text, and connect to the internet in iPhone. So this is inheritance. iPhone is what's called a superclass. I'll call it superclass. I'll put it in blue, superclass. And these two are subclasses. Subclass. You can also call the superclass the parent class and these the child classes. So now let's get rid of our red line here. Disconnect this connection. We're going to make it flood mode, global. There we go. Get rid of that connection. So now we want our array of phones. Alright? So say in this array of phones we want to have iPhones and Android. That's okay. You can use a phone as an iPhone or an Android because of polymorphism. So if you have a subclass, you can make the data type phone. So you can have phone P, and you can have phone P equals new iPhone. And that's polymorphism. So those are our three concepts that you need to understand for the rest of ever. So we're going to go into Eclipse. So open up Eclipse and make a new project. So File, new project, Java project. We're going to call this just objects because that's what we're learning about. Hit enter. So we're going to go ahead and just make a class. We're going to make two classes right now. We're just going to go ahead and make a main class. We're not going to mess with that yet. We're going to make another class and we're going to call it circle. I'm going to use geometric objects to explain all this stuff. So, alright, so once you call new, so I have my circle. Say I want to make circle C, and I can do C equals new circle, right? So what this is doing is it's calling what's called a constructor, and it's setting up all the things in circle that need to be set up. So let's give circle some values. We're going to make them private float x, private float y, private float radius, and private float area, and finally private float perimeter. I know it's called circumference, but for the sake of this video, we're gonna call it perimeter. So yeah, if you remember, we do variables in here, float x, but that's just letting us only use it in this main, so in between these curly brackets. So these let us just use it throughout the whole file within these curly brackets. And alright, so private means that only, so say iPhone had private Apple in it. Android and iPhone won't be able to access Apple or main in that case, unless you have a method to get Apple. And Android, you have Google, private Google, right? So that's what a private means. It means only this class can use these variables. And then in phone class, and then you also have public. You can also have public things. So here we're gonna have a public float x, or x1 equals 9, and you can use this. Oh, it's x2 now, but you can use this in other classes. But anyway, so when you call the new, you call a constructor. A constructor is a public object, and it's always going to have the same name as your class here, and so it's not going to have the name. It's not going to have a data type. It's just going to have the name. Well, it's gonna, yeah. And so this is our constructor, and there's our parameters. So a method, I'm going to just go ahead. This is going to be our default constructor. So it's going to be this.x equals 0, this.y equals 0, this.radius equals 1. This is all our default values. All right. So all methods have a modifier or a scope, a modifier, which we won't be looking at, a return type, so we're going to do a float, and a name, so we're going to do get x. Alright, so there's going to be a problem with get x because it doesn't return anything. All methods that are floats or any sort of type, you have to return something. So return x, this.x. This.x means that it's referencing this x value of this class, of this instance of this class. So you can do sys.out, c.getx. As you remember, system.out, that's a method. We have to save. Make sure to always save. And we run it. Should be 0. Alright. So we change this to 1. You run it. Be 1. Whatever. So let's make a, so let's have a value that can set the x. Public. So if you don't want there to be a return value, you want it to not return something, you just want it to do stuff, you set a void. Void means that there's no return value. Set x. Alright, so modifier, return type, or scope, return type, name, and parameters. Sometimes they don't have parameters, but in our case we're going to have parameters. Parameter is a variable that you put in there that it's going to use. So set x, it's going to take in a float x, so this dot x equals x. Alright, so this dot x is equal to x. So in this case, this thing takes in a float. This is their method, println float, and it takes in a float. We gave it a float. So we can do c.setx. See, as it takes in a float, we can put in whatever we want. Let's put in 602 or 6002. That's even better. This out, we can do c.getx again, and we'll see that it will change. See, 0, 602. But what if we want there to be a circle that starts out with a certain x and a y? To do that, we can make different methods that have the same name. Right? There's a problem here, but they have to have different parameters. Alright, this is called overloading a method. So let's give it an x and a y and a radius. And we can do this dot x equals x, just like in our set method, this dot y equals y, and this dot radius equals radius. Alright, so it's pretty much just setting these to what I put into the new parameter here. We're going to delete this as well. So these are called getters and setters, this get x and set x. They're kind of special and you use them a lot in programming. So Eclipse has made this thing, so if you click up here in source and you go down to generate getters and setters, we're going to go ahead and do this with y and radius, and just check these. You can just make it do get radius or set radius, or you can do it both, and you can set where it goes in the code. We're going to do it after set x. As you can see, x does not exist here because we already have getters and setters, right? And click OK. It automatically generates you getters and setters. It's pretty cool. So yeah, we have that. Let's make a void that that prints the circle, the information. So print. So you can do sys out. Let it be the circle is at, in parentheses, we're going to make an ordered pair here. So plus we can just do get x, this dot get x. Sometimes that's common to do. This dot get y. And that should be good. So here we can just do c dot print. All right, it's at 0 0. All right, sys out. The circle has a radius of this. So this is just calling itself. Get radius. Yeah. So the circle is at 0 0 and the circle has a radius of 1. So let's make a circle with different values. So right, we have this overloaded method here. So to use the overloaded method, you just match the parameters. So let's have one at 15, 25, and give it a radius of 5. So it's at 15, 25, and a radius of 5. And it has to be in order. So your x, if you put x first here, has to go first here. If you put y here and radius, you know all these orders. So the reason I didn't do area and perimeter is because area and perimeter are something that you don't set. You can just get them, and it does it based on radius. So get area. So this dot area, we're gonna set it to math.pi. Math is what you can do to do a bunch of things: absolute value, sign, maximum, minimum, all of these things, absolute value, all this cool stuff. And it also has some constants like pi. Pi times you can do math.pal. This is what you do for exponents. So this is the base. So pal of this dot radius, and it's to the second power squared. So radius exponent 2. So I have, let me make this a float. I have a problem with this. This is a double. Math.pi is a double and math.pal is a double. So this is a type mismatch. So we're going to go ahead and put parentheses here. We're going to cast it. Float. This is what forces this to be whatever this is to be a float. Alright. And we still need our return. So return this dot area. Alright. Or we just do return area. I don't know if I did that or not. Return x. Alright. And we can do the same for perimeter. Public float get perimeter. This dot perimeter is equal to math.pi times, in more parentheses, this dot radius times 2. And we want to cast that and return perimeter. Alright. So now let's add that to our print this out. The circle has an area of this dot get area and comma and a perimeter of this dot perimeter or get perimeter. Okay, so now we run this. Let's just do it with our default first, actually. So default, so 1, default 1, 4, 1, 5, whatever that. So then we can do 25, 15, and 5, and see how it changes. See how it's different. Alright, so great. We have a circle. So now let's say we want to have let's say we want to have a rectangle. So make a new class, call it rectangle, or let's go ahead and start with shape. Go ahead and start with shape, and we want to float. So now in shape we're going to give, so now all our shapes are also going to have an x and a y, an area, and a perimeter. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and just delete all of this. Alright. Get rid of this, 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 and this. Alright, you'll see what I'm doing. So now we're going to give this a protected float x, protected float y, protected float area, and protected float perimeter. Alright, Now our problem should be so now we have this shape here. Alright, and we're gonna make a public shape this dot x equals 0, this dot y equals 0, and a public shape that takes in an x and a y. This dot x equals x and this dot y equals y. Alright, so now in here we're going to do what's a super. So super, see, this is the constructor with no parameters, and in here this is the constructor with no parameters. So first of all, we have to make this extend shape. Alright, I think I spelled extend wrong. Oh no, it's extends with an S, sorry. Extend shape, which means that now we just drew this blue line. And what protected means, it means it's like private, but it means that not just this class, but also any class that extends it. So if we have a protected float serial number, we put it here and it's protected. I'm gonna make that green. Only these classes can use the green. This one, these cannot. So we're gonna have to have getters and setters for what's in green. So so yeah, it extends shape, and this is the constructor with no parameters, and this is also the constructor with no parameters. So that means it's just gonna do that. And then super, we can just do x and y. So it's just gonna do this as well. Do this, just do it here for this one's is x and y. And then we're just gonna make getters and setters for x and y. The source, generate getters and setters for x and y, and after shape. Alright. So you have get x and get y. So everything's correct. So we got rid of errors. So let's go ahead and use polymorphism. We can do shape s or c1. C1 equals new circle. Alright, and we're going to do c1 dot print. Oh, we can't do that yet. Now we have to give shape a print method, but it has to be different because this needs to stay in the circle class, because when we have other shapes that don't have radii, we want them to be able to print. So what we have to do, we have to make an abstract void print, and then we have to make this class abstract. So an abstract class you cannot make an instance of. So if you change this to shape, you will get an error. You cannot instantiate type shape because it's an abstract class. What an abstract method is it looks like this, and what it does is when you make a new class, you're gonna get this override. Means it's looking at the so you can't just put this in above anything because you'll get an error. This is not an override because there is no method here. This method is taken by this class and changed. I'm pretty sure this also counts as an override. No. Well, no, it's not an override. Anyway, this is changed. So it's a method with the same name and the same parameters in different classes. So in its subclasses, it gets changed. It does different things. So now we can go in here, print, and it'll print it according to what circle defines printing to be. Alright, so we're going to make another shape, C2, and C2 equals new circle. We're going to give it our 15, 25, and 5. Oops. Don't worry, this one I won't be deleting. and then c2.print. See how we're using them as shapes, but we give them circles. Alright, we're just going to sys out, or system.print.out, sorry. It's going to make my my console look a bit nicer by printing out a new line in between these. And yeah, /n, it'll just go to the next line. It just cuts the line. So if you start a line with /n, it'll just skip a line. So that's what I'm doing right now. That's what the /n does. Put spaces, make my code look neat. Alright, so in circle we have this. But now we can't get the area. We can't do get area. So we have to make area and perimeter also an override. This isn't necessary to type at override, but you should do it. So get area, you don't want this. You want it to be an abstract void. Get area, public abstract void, get perimeter. Oh, these are their floats. That's what's wrong. Float. Alright. So even if we made this a circle, we can still use all this stuff. So c1.getX, get x and all that stuff. It all exists still. Just thought I'd mention that. So we have our get area, get perimeter here and here. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna make a rectangle. Now, so in our superclass, we can just do shape and then check off this constructors for the superclass and click finish. Look at all the stuff we automatically got. Alright. So one thing that a rectangle has that a circle doesn't, or two things actually, is a length and a width. But in programming you're gonna call it width and height. That's just how it is. So we're gonna make a private float width, or yeah, width will always come first, private float height, and area and perimeter are based on that. So we're gonna do super, we're gonna do this dot width, we're gonna make it a 1 by 1 square. Alright, and then this one takes in a float width and a float height. Alright, and this dot width equals width, and this dot height equals height. Alright, so we're gonna go into circle. These are kind of similar. This line right here, just change this to rectangle. Okay, so the area, turn area, turn perimeter. We don't have to worry about them having values because they always get a value right here. So this dot area is equal to this dot length, or this dot height times this dot width, and then this dot get perimeter. This dot perimeter is equal to, so we want 2 times this dot height plus 2 times this width, right? Because it's width, height times height plus width plus width. So we have area perimeter. We're gonna go ahead, this out. A rectangle has a height or a width of a width of this dot width and a height of there's going to be no units, so that's why it's just number. This dot height. Actually, we're going to do get width and get height, so we're going to do source generate getters and setters. Height, width, after get perimeter. Get width. It's just better practice. Get height. Get height. Keep doing that. Okay, so it's this out. Rectangle has an area of this dot get area and a perimeter of this dot get perimeter. Alright, so now we go back into our main, and now let's make two more shapes. So shape R1 equals new rectangle R1 dot print. Shape R2 equals new rectangle R2 dot print. Right? R2 dot print. We're gonna make this one at 70, 10, or we're gonna make it 5 pixels wide and 10 pixels tall. Excuse me. It's a rectangle that goes like, it's kind of short. It's kind of like it goes. Can't really do it with this. It's gonna look kind of like this if you draw it. Not really. Anyway, that's completely not important. I didn't do this. So let's look at our console. And I need one here too. So let's look at our console. We have a circle at 0, 0, and it has a radius of 1, and its area and perimeter is that. The circle is at 15, 15, has a radius of 5, and its area is that, and a perimeter of that. So a rectangle is at 0, 0, has a width of 1 and a height of 1, the area is 1, and the perimeter is 4. At 70, 70, that's really weird. I don't think I did something wrong. I must have. Go with height. Huh. Super X, Y, shape. This dot X. Oh, that's a problem. This dot X equals X. That's what we want. No wonder it was weird. There we go. 15, 25. There we go. That's right. 70 and 10, 5 and 10. 5 times 10 is that. 10, 5 times 2 is 10 plus 20 is 30. So everything worked correctly. So that's pretty much the rest of all programming. You really don't need to know much else. How long have I been talking about it? 34 minutes. Holy crap. So yeah, next up, this is no longer going to be a programming tutorial. It's going to be game development. So I'm going to start calling the videos just by what they are. So the next set of videos will be all about Pong. Well, they're going to still be called programming tutorial, actually. Forget that. But it's going to start with Pong, and so yeah, it's going to be Pong. We're going to start with it. We're going to start with libgdx next time. So if you have any questions, email me, Skype me, text me, and I'll get to you. Find me around school, talk to me at club, and I'll get to you as fast as I can. Which most of the time is immediately. So yeah, bye. Bye.